There now follows a ministerial broadcast from the Prime Minister.
Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone. All over the world, we're seeing the devastating impact of this invisible killer. The time has now come for us all to do more. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. No Prime Minister wants to enact measures like this. I know the damage that this disruption is doing and will do to people's lives, to their businesses and to their jobs.
So we're in a weird situation. The government has said we're in a lockdown.
Me personally, it got me into betting team.
You couldn't even leave the house and go and get your shopping.
I think there's a lot of anxiety as well.
I was in Germany at the time when it broke, and Germany actually closed their borders down a lot quicker than they did here in the UK.
I work in the pharmaceutical industry. Several people I know died.
The Prime Minister announced lockdown in March of 2020.
Many more got seriously ill.
Our venue was closed.
It didn't bother me too much. I mean, I've been in the business for so long that when the government said, well, you've got to stay at home and do nothing for a few months, I thought, okay then.
Constantly on the go, constantly training, constantly doing things, and all these things fulfill me, they make me happy, they give me some identity and purpose. So to have those taken away was it was a tough time. And
I'll stay at home and watch the telly.
A lot of time obviously online, talking to friends.
The smearing campaigns on the internet.
When 2020 struck, all of it went out the window, and to say the least was devastated and not quite sure what to do with ourselves.
The borders closed, and I was unable to leave.
It had a huge effect on everything, especially here at the dojo.
At points you didn't really know how to fill your time, what to do. You didn't have any idea of when things were coming back.
The gyms were closed at the time being, you know.
I had to travel back from Germany through Switzerland to France to get the airport back, and I didn't know if I was going to get through.
I really didn't think that the shows would ever return. I was really worried about shows coming back during the height of the pandemic.
All the non-essential shops were closed all over the world. Thousands died in each country. The roads were empty. Life was looking very bleak. After 2 years of loneliness and depression, this is a story of how British wrestling rose back to the top.
Did I think wrestling would come back when it would? No, I didn't. I really didn't think the shows were going to start up again when they did.
Like something as kind of so physical contact as wrestling, for it to come back, it just felt a bit like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think wrestling should have been one of the first things to stop and one of the last things to return.
Boris Johnson said that events could take place at 50%. There was a bit of a grey line because they didn't really want full contact between people.
You've got to keep your mind occupied as much as possible because under the government's regulations, really. But unfortunately, we just have to follow them.
It was so good, so good to be back in front of live audiences performing, having that real human to human connection that we craved after so long, having just artificial Zoom calls and FaceTime.
It took longer than I thought to get to the point where we were able and allowed to reopen, but I was very pleased that we eventually did.
All of a sudden, the shows come back and they were hot.
Was it too early?
Wrestling is a full contact thing. So I made contact with Paul Bristow, who's the Peterborough MP, and got some help and clarification that wrestling events could take place, 50% capacity.
Everywhere was selling out.
Beginning of the middle of summertime, where we just walked out of the pandemic in 2021.
And for the first 3 to 4 months, it was a really good atmosphere in the change room. It was closed because of the smearing campaigns on the internet.
Just given the nature of everything that had happened, we expected there to really no longer be LDN shows.
People were being very careful who they were going to talk to, who they were going to affiliate with, who was going to do what for who, when, why. But when the groups did merge back together, it was like being in a family again, which was what we really needed at that time, was to be back in a family. Families fall out, families argue, but when it comes time to put on a show, we put on a show. And that was the beauty about that moment in time, was it brought the correct members of the family back together.
And it was really strange because every family was separated from the next family, and you had usual seats in a theatre, but then you had white seats, covers put over where people couldn't sit. It was like a Virgin Atlantic flight or something like that. It was very strange. But ITV came down, we ran the first wrestling show in the country, the first wrestling tour during that half term, and then during that summer we was putting 2 to 3 shows every day.
This theatre where all the action is going to unfold. The ring, as you can see, hasn't yet been built, but the wrestlers are practicing some moves at the moment. Now I should say I know very little about wrestling, but a man who does know a lot is Sanjay. Sanjay, tell me, how good is it to be back here wrestling again post-COVID?
It's so great. It's been a long, hard year. We've all had a bit of a rough year, but it's back, and it's bigger than better than ever after being so quiet. But it's a special night here. It's the 90th anniversary of the venue. This venue's had wrestling for over 70 years. Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, and the late great McManus. It's just going to be an honour to be here tonight. And you have a sold-out crowd as well.
Yeah, sold out. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sanjay. Let's have a chat with the wrestlers here now. This is Joey and Alan. Alan, you're British champion. Tell me, what's it like to be back wrestling? How are you looking forward to tonight?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. I've been away for so long. Tonight is going to be England versus America for the British Championship. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Brilliant. And Joey, why is this such an exhilarating thing to be involved in?
I mean, it's got to be the crowd for me. I mean, what a beautiful venue to return to. We've been out for a year with COVID, and to really be back in front of a crowd, it's what makes for wrestling.
When I did come back, that's when I caught COVID, and I caught it from a wrestler.
A lot of them are younger than I am, and I was lucky enough to have some of the vaccinations, the first jab, the second jab, and I should think some of the other boys did. But you were never sure, because how sort of sport we do, close contact, and then with the audience, there was always that problem where we meet people after the shows, the meet and greets. I was a bit wary of when people want to come next to you and put their arm around you for a photograph, and I didn't know how that was going to work, to be honest.
But I did get it and pass it on to my sister. And even now, getting on for a year and a half after then, she still can't taste properly.
So there was a lot that went into it, and to be honest, there was doubt for quite a while. It did take some time, a considerable amount of time, as this wasn't over in simply 6 months or 1 year. In fact, it took a very long time, and it's still really ongoing.
Luckily, I got off of it okay.
A call from LDN promoter Sanjay so early on during lockdown, saying that we've got the go-ahead to get back performing, to doing what we love. It was incredible.
Sanjay was right on the money. You know, he kept on promoting his shows throughout the lockdown. You know, the government was saying that they were going to open up, then to put us back into lockdowns, and Sanjay kept on with the promoting, postering, booking venues. You know, things were getting cancelled. There was slight hope, but he didn't give up. He didn't let it get to him.
We had to do it gradually, and we had to do it bit by bit.
Taking safety measures, making sure that the right protocol is in place, making sure that the right steps are taken to make sure that the shows are safe.
What we've learned about British wrestling is no matter what the failures and the ups and downs that happen throughout the years, you know, people have, ultimately our customers have come back through the doors. And that's what's kept it going through all the kind of hardship. You know, LDN being like the company that's been for such a long time, the reputation it has, they're basically market leaders now. And so they then went back, led to other people going, you know what, actually, we can come back too. And obviously, I think although it's a long way to go to how it was before, you know, wrestling in general and LDN, I think it still is great that it's come back. And you know, the shows that LDN are putting on have been like fantastic. You know, new stars are going to come through. You know, still got a lot of the old, and it's that nice mix of everything you want in a wrestling show.
Great credit to LDN. They worked very hard to be one of the first promotions to get back up and running when it was possible to do so after the pandemic.
And LDN showing up and offered us a good chance to get back in the ring and stay in shape and really show the audience of what we've learned over the past few years.
Those did come back. It was all worthwhile. Everyone was desperate for live entertainment.
To normal, we're back to entertaining fans in theatres across the country. Since then, across the world, performed internationally since then. So it's great to be back.
Better than it's ever been, like in the past couple of years. And I hope you'll continue on for all time's sake.
I think coming back from lockdown was hard for a lot of people. I think people just wanted to have some fun, and I hope that we provided people with fun during that awkward time of coming out of lockdown, and people coming to events and people showing up and not knowing, can we sit near people? Can we keep a distance? Because some people would show up with a face mask on, it wasn't compulsory. But I noticed after 10, 20 minutes they take it off and people start to go back to normal. And it's great now that we can go back to normal, and I'm very glad that we hopefully never have to have another lockdown again. But yeah, I'm glad that we were the first tour back, and I'm thankful to the fans for coming out, because it could have been opening the doors and nobody showing up, but thankfully we're busy every night.
We've been in the doldrums for a few years, but it's back and it's better than ever.